What's up, everybody? This is the Sports League podcast, back for another week. I'm your host, Alex Leak, and we got a great guest to have back on the show. Always awesome to have you on, Chad Brown. Thanks for coming on, Chad.
Well, thanks for having me on, my friend. I'm sorry we haven't been able to hook up until this point, but with the NFL and teams treating the first couple of games of the regular season almost like preseason, I think we're
Yeah,
connecting at the time when real football is about to be played and we know who these teams actually are.
absolutely. We're starting to see like who the good teams might be. Teams are starting to separate a little bit. I agree. It's like they don't play the starters in the preseason, so the first 4 weeks are like preseason, and it's kind of sloppy, you know?
Yeah, yeah. So now we're getting to the point where teams, I think coaches know who their teams are, players know
Mhm.
what their assignments are. So the real NFL season is kind of kicking off this week.
Absolutely. So let's get into this Thursday night, week five. This is going to be the week five preview, and we're going to recap Thursday night. Thursday night we had the Bucks at the Falcons, and this is a great game, Chad. 36-30, the Falcons win in overtime, and Tampa Bay. It looked like they had this game in the bag, but Kirk Cousins was clutch. Jesse Bates with a huge forced fumble, and the Falcons were able to steal this one, huh?
They were, and I know some folks are still having issue with the overtime rule. I
Yep.
I still am a fan. I know they modified it for the playoffs, but I'm a fan of the sudden death aspect as far as in the first drive scoring a touchdown. If you are
Yeah.
a coach who wants to, avoid that possibility, then you are compelled to try to win the game in regular time. So if it
Exactly.
goes into overtime, the sudden death aspect is still there. So I like the rule as it is now. The walk-off touchdown was certainly exciting and dramatic for Atlanta, and for the Bucks, which seemed to, have a pretty good feel about where they were in that division and a chance to, gain another game up to get upset by the Falcons. Kirk Cousins, the first week of the season, didn't look so good. Now he seems to be gaining confidence in that repaired Achilles tendon, using his footwork a bit more. So it's going to be an interesting battle in that division if the Falcons continue to find ways like they played last night.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a huge win for them. And yeah, to that point about the overtime, I'm old school. I like the way it was when you played the sudden death as far as like a field goal could win it, you know? I liked that aspect of it. Amanda hates it. Amanda, my co-host, she was rooting for Tampa Bay. She's a big Baker Mayfield fan, and she was like, Baker deserves a shot to get the ball. And me and her are like, well, if you're gonna do it that way, we kind of like the college overtime rules. Do you think the NFL should consider adopting the overtime rules at all?
No, I
No.
I enjoy college football and I enjoy the
Yeah.
fact that it's got a different set of overtime rules. But we take the regular game and we remove special teams from it with the college overtime rules. There's no
Yeah.
kickoff, there's no punt, there's none of that stuff. So I don't think that necessarily fits with what the NFL is. And I think to modify the way the game is played just simply because it's an overtime game, I know there's hockey shootouts and soccer shootouts, and they're exciting. There's a reason why college football overtime has its own excitement to it as well. But I like the NFL keeping the full aspect of the game still in overtime.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. And regardless, you can go back and forth on it all day, but it doesn't take away from the excitement. It was a great game and a great ending and a lot of fun to watch. I've been saying that the Falcons have the best safety duo in the NFL with adding Justin Simmons along with Jesse Bates. And how about Jesse Bates with those peanut punch fumbles that he forced and a big one in the clutch too?
Huge, huge clutch play. I always admire a great play, no matter when it happens, but the players who have the ability to make a play when their team needs it most, and those
Yeah.
critical situations in the game, those guys are literally game changers. Until Jesse Bates made not just a game changer, but a game winning play when he forces the fumble. And the ability now for particularly defensive backs to do that peanut punch, to strip balls away from ball carriers. This is actually the best I think the NFL has ever seen defenders at that skill set.
Yeah.
It was not emphasized as much when I was a player. Of course, when you got around the quarterback as a pass rusher, you tried to knock it out. But we didn't do specific drills. The way that is coached, the way that is taught now, it literally it produces every week. I would say there's a game that is changed by a defensive back who may not be big enough to tackle Derrick Henry, but can reach around and punch a ball out from somebody like Derrick Henry. So that game changing ability for those guys is just off the charts, and I love to see it.
Do you feel like that comes from like Lovie Smith? Do you think he was teaching that and his emphasis on turnovers and taking the ball away?
A lot of teams emphasize turnovers, but I think sometimes just because you talk about it doesn't mean you put the work in.
Yeah.
I was with the Seahawks doing a coaching internship out there. The work was put in every day. And when I did my coaching internship with the 49ers, even during the offseason, before we were wearing pads, every day at the end of practice, and we watched the practice tape with the guys, there were coaches who were responsible for charting every single turnover attempt, every punch
Okay.
at a ball, every swipe at a ball. And so the group, linebackers, defensive line, or secondary that had the most attempts that day, they got some kind of reward for that. So for the 49ers, who obviously have been very successful defensively, for the Seahawks under
Yeah.
Pete Carroll, turnovers were a huge part of what they do. It's not even like ha ha funny. It's just like funny because it's so true. You are good at what you emphasize, and the coaches
Yeah.
actually devote practice time to it and devote meeting time to it. Their teams play with that in mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent. Excellent points there. 100%. Young Wei Koo with a huge 52-yard field goal to force overtime, and the Falcons get the win. Yeah, a golden opportunity missed by Tampa Bay here to put a two-game lead between them and Atlanta. Now they're tied at 3-2, and the Falcons seem to be hitting their stride. Like you said, Kirk Cousins is getting more confident. He's getting more chemistry with Drake London and Kyle Pitts. They improved to 3-2, and they play the Panthers next. The Falcons are looking like they're going to be in this till the very end, competing for a division championship. Do you think Atlanta can do it?
It seems to be that way. Now, Atlanta was a lot of people's sexy pick in the preseason of somebody who's going to emerge. And then those first couple of weeks when Kirk Cousins was clearly not comfortable with where he was with his footwork and his Achilles repair. Heck, Kyle Pitts was essentially a disappearing act until last
Mm-hmm.
night. So we opened up talking about the extension of the preseason and teams not really being sure who they are the first couple of weeks. I think maybe I personally kind of wrote the Falcons off a bit too early and wrote guys off like Kirk Cousins and Kyle Pitts off a little bit too early as well. At this point, it only gained one game from 16 to 17, but the NFL season, which every week is important, now if there's another game in there, it feels definitely more like a marathon, and you have the ability to kind of come out the gates a bit slow. And in some ways, I think you want to, because if you come out the gate super sharp, there's no way you're going to be able to maintain that razor's edge of sharpness for 17 weeks. You got to find a way to build your team up so you're playing your best football in December and January. And maybe the Falcons could be that type of team this year.
Yeah, 100%. And nice to see them get a big win on Thursday night. Let's welcome in Amanda, the co-host. Amanda, so we talked a little bit about the overtime rules. Chad likes it. Me and you talked about the college. See, she wanted to see Baker Mayfield
So
get a chance. I remember you complaining when Josh Allen didn't get a chance in the playoff game against the Chiefs.
I have
State your
felt this
case
way.
for
I have felt this way forever,
that.
especially since the Packers Seattle NFC Championship game. I think when
Yeah.
you have a Marshawn Lynch or an amazing offense, and both of that year, both of those teams had great offenses, but you can get to a big game and you can fight to the end and tie it up. Like last night, we saw no defense. Like the best we saw was a tipped field goal. Like there was no defense the whole game. So when both teams are playing and relying on their offenses, you make it to overtime and then a coin flip decides which offense gets on the field and which one doesn't. That doesn't make any sense to me. Like you both
Well,
fought equally hard to end the game with a tied score. And obviously we saw little defense when the scores are that high, and then only one offense gets on the field. Like it doesn't make any sense to me. It's just not
well,
even or fair. So one possession each would be fine. College rules are so much fun, so I like those, but I just I just don't think it's fair, and it's stupid that something like leaving it up to a coin flip, which is all luck, after working hard and actually, getting to the end of the game and tying it up, offense and defense doing what they had to do to get there, and then a coin flip deciding your fate, or at least giving you a 70% chance to win. Because I've looked it up. Overtime teams who won the coin flip and got the first possession win 70% of the time. Like
well,
statistically, you have an advantage. That's bullshit.
tell Levante David to make a play, take an interception, force a fumble, and then
I
Baker's
understand
got
that.
a shot.
But there was no defense last night. So it's not fair that only your worst side of the team gets to touch the ball. Like you have
Chad,
to
what do you think of this? I had to hear this last night. What do you think, Chad?
he hears this every time there's an overtime game and somebody wins a possession.
Yes. Wonderful to meet you last year, by the way.
Yeah, hi again.
Good to see you again now. Yeah, the overtime rules, again, as I spoke to Alex, I like them. I like the sudden death aspect. This implores coaches to not play for overtime, but to try to play to win in regulation, because
Yeah,
chance that your fate could be determined by a coin toss. Now, in the playoffs, they've modified it now,
Yeah.
where both teams will get a chance to get a possession. So that's the playoffs. But here in the regular season, the NFL's got an interest in the 17-game season of trying to eliminate overtime games and try to shorten the games overall. So this rule, as it currently is constructed, allows all those things to happen. It forces coaches to play for regulation, try to get the win in regulation. It keeps the games shorter, and it eliminates the coach who says, you know what, we got the ball with 1:20 left. Rather than try to go down and score and possibly give you the ball back and you can get your field goal, we'll just play for overtime. It eliminates
yeah,
the possibility of coaching, because to your point, if you know those numbers, coaches certainly know those numbers as well, and they don't want to have the game come down to a coin toss.
yeah. It's an excellent take. So, Amanda, we already recapped the Bucks and Falcons, but we're gonna get into our picks. Sound good? You ready?
Sure, I'm partially ready. I'll decide some on the fly. It's been a hectic week for me.
Chad, Chad, are you comfortable? Are you ready to make some picks for this week?
Let's do
All
it.
right, awesome. So let's start it out with the London game. I'm excited. Not everyone loves the London game, but I do, especially when I'm not on the West Coast, because 6:30 a.m. is a little too early, but 9:30 a.m. is the perfect time. And a great game. Jets, Vikings, undefeated Vikings, which I'm still not buying that. I don't know why the Vikings are undefeated. I don't know why Sam Darnold is NFC Offensive Player of the Month. The Jets defense needs to bring them back to reality. I'm all in with these Jets. Chad, how are you feeling about this game?
I am going to go with the Vikings here.
Okay.
O'Connell has done a tremendous job with Sam Darnold. I
Yeah.
called a lot of his games when he was at USC, when there was a Pac-12 and I was with the Pac-12 network. The best parts of his game that I saw him have at USC, he's brought that to the Vikings. Defensively, they are leading the league in sacks. They are certainly very high up in the league in turnovers as well. They give up some yards to one of the teams that give up some of the most yards in the league, but they're so turnover opportunistic. They get after the quarterback really well. I think the Jets are going to struggle with this. Clearly, the Broncos have a good defense. I know it was a weather game last week for the Jets and the Broncos, but even despite the weather, the Broncos defense was able to really, really stifle the Jets offense. And I think the different but similar style defense of the Vikings is going to do the same thing to the Jets. Aaron Rodgers is going to continue to get better and make his plays, but I got the Vikings getting the win over there in London.
Yeah,
Amanda, Jordan Love turned the ball over a few times. I don't expect Aaron Rodgers to turn the ball over. Do you think the Vikings, how do you see that going?
Well, Aaron Rodgers got beat up last week. I mean,
Yeah.
we know this offense, like we'll cut him a little slack for a weather game. Those games are always weird. But pass protection against the blitz last week was garbage. And we know Minnesota is very, very blitz heavy. But Rodgers was sacked 5 times, 14 quarterback hits. He's nursing a sore knee. And I think the first half of the game, Jordan Love that we saw, having some weight issues on that back leg is going to be very similar to what Aaron Rodgers looks like. He's going to be protecting that sore leg. And Minnesota, I mean, I wasn't expecting this out of them. But with how bad the offense for the Jets played, and then how good that Minnesota defense has been, I also worry about the other side of things where I expected more from this Jets defense this year, and I really haven't
Yeah.
seen the defense we expected.
Zero
And that,
sacks last week. Yeah.
yeah, and the Vikings offense, as much as it pains me to say, they're firing in all cylinders right now.
Yeah.
And I mean, Justin Jefferson has a TD in every game this season. He'll be joining Randy Moss as the only player in Vikings history to have 5 straight in the first 5 games of the season if he makes one this weekend. So obviously he's going to be playing his heart out because, like, that boy loves Randy Moss. Like, that's his hero. Like, that he's got pictures up on the wall of him. Like, that's the goal, is to, in Minnesota, is to do whatever you can to be like Randy. But I worry about the Jets, especially with Aaron Rodgers limping a bit. So I'm going to side with the Vikings here.
Didn't everyone have a Randy Moss poster in their room? I'm a Bears fan, and I had Randy Moss in my room. Like, he was awesome.
I mean, I had Brian Urlacher and Devin Hester as a Packers fan, so.
Yeah, no Morgan Moses, so they got the rookie Olufashanu starting on that O-line for the Jets. And yeah, Patrick Jones has been a pleasant surprise for the Vikings. I think he's got like 5 sacks already. Who else? Is it Jonathan Grenard over there as well? So Brian Flores has that defense hitting on all cylinders. The Vikings aren't going to go 17-0. They're going to lose at some point. I'm picking it in London. Let's go Jets. All right.
Something that's funny is the Vikings are the first team in the Super Bowl era to start a season 4-0 despite not being a single 1-point favorite in any of the games. They have yet to be favored by 1 point, and they're 4-0. So they're having an odd season. And it doesn't seem like anyone has any faith in him. And also on the Jets, I'm concerned about the chemistry with Aaron Rodgers and his receivers. We've seen drops and bad throws to Garrett Wilson in almost every game this season, and I don't know what's going on there.
Chad, I want to bring this up. Devontae Adams wants out of the Raiders. He wants to be traded. Everyone's saying the Jets makes the most sense. Reunite him with Aaron Rodgers. Garrett Wilson already seems a little bit unhappy. Do you think bringing in Devontae could fracture that a little bit and make Garrett Wilson unhappy and not get him enough targets?
I can't pretend to understand wide receivers and their diva-esque nature.
Yeah.
Just because a great receiver comes in, that's going to open up more opportunities for you. There's only one ball on offense, and every receiver feels like he's got to have the ball in his hands to be involved in things. But for Garrett Wilson, if Devontae comes in, then you're going to get single coverage. You're going to be able to exploit that. And you're going to throw the ball to the guy who's open. He's not just going to feed it exclusively to Devontae Adams. So there's a benefit there to Garrett Wilson. And let's face it, Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson have the ability to, or Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams, sorry, they know each other really well. So now Devontae can explain to Garrett, hey, this is what he's looking for. When you run this route, this is what he's hoping to see. When you do this, or we're going to call this play, this is what he needs to see from you in order to make this connection more likely. So I think it would be a benefit overall. But the Jets have made some curious moves. Hassan Riddick just this year with some of the front office stuff they've done. So I'm not sure if the Raiders, who are one of the oddest front offices in the league, with the Jets, one of the oddest front offices in the league, those two teams can they come together and not screw something up? I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. All right, let's go. Panthers at Bears. My Chicago Bears, 2-2, 1-3 Panthers. The Bears defense hasn't allowed more than 21 points yet in a single game this season. And the rookie quarterback, Caleb Williams, seems to be looking better each week with more and more experience. Going up against this Panthers team, I'm anticipating a breakout game. You got the full slate of receivers for him. So I think the Bears take this one at home. Chad, how are you feeling about Panthers at Bears?
Obviously, Andy Dalton came back, the Red Rifle, and got them the win versus the Raiders.
Yeah.
The Panthers are still struggling. You knew just a switch at quarterback was not going to be enough to turn them into a winning season this year. So I've got the Bears in this one as well. Caleb Williams, to your point, getting more comfortable every single week. The Bears have talent on the defensive side of the ball. I knew this Bears team would take some time to come together, but again, as we start this podcast talking about, this is that time of year. You got 4 games under your belt. You should be pretty comfortable with your assignments, the scheme, all of that. And so the teams that actually have a chance to come together should be coming together now. And I think the Bears are further ahead than where the Panthers are, and I expect them to win on Sunday.
But I'm gonna roll with the Bears here too, because as much of an improvement as Andy Dalton has been over Bryce Young this year, because they averaged the NFL worst 176 yards per game on offense with him at the helm, and then Dalton coming in, they're 5th most since he's been in. So, there's definitely an improvement there, but that defense is so banged up. They're already adding 2 new inside linebackers this week to cover for injuries, and they already had so many people out. I mean, Derek Brown's out, Jordan Fuller, Shaq Thompson, Josie Jewell. Like they're missing so many key players on defense. I just think that Chicago offense going to take advantage of that. They're 30th in sacks, bottom of the league in pressures. Like there's only so much you can do missing half of your defense on the field.
Absolutely. Yeah, makes sense. So we're all on Chicago. This one is tough. Ravens at Bengals. Everything is pointing to the Ravens here. The Bengals' run D is pretty bad. They are off to a really slow start. Their only win is against the Carolina Panthers. The Ravens, Derrick Henry, 383 yards and 4 touchdowns the last 2 games combined. So Derrick Henry really hitting his stride. But this is a desperate Bengals team at home. We know how division rivalry games go. Chad, we just saw this with Falcons and Bucks. Everyone assumed Tampa Bay was going to take it, but those division rivalry games are unpredictable, right? Do you see any way the Bengals can steal this one?
I can see ways the Bengals can steal this one. I just don't think it's likely. The higher finish thing is clearly the Ravens winning. The Ravens got off to, I guess a bit of a slow start, but I mean, they lost to the Chiefs by, a toe. A toe length was a difference in the ball game. So the Ravens, despite the record, I think are one of the top teams in the league, as they've shown the last couple of weeks. The Bengals are still sorting things out, but I think if the Bengals can find a way to play well, they don't have to win, but if they play well, there's still a possibility for them to have some success this season. Joe Burrow is still a good quarterback. They've got some pieces in place. They just need to find them a way to play together. Let's not forget the very first 2 weeks of the season, Joe Burrow was on the sideline kind of rolling his wrist around, trying to, feel that thing. So he was not clearly ready to go when the season started. And if a guy's going into the regular season that way, can you imagine the amount of inactivity he had in the offseason? So how are they possibly offensively all going to be on the same page for a guy who's just beginning to get healthy? So I think the Bengals still have a chance, not just in this game, but in this season. But I've got the Ravens winning this one. They're beginning to take the addition of Derrick Henry. You compare that. You can't compare. You add that to Lamar Jackson at quarterback. Those 2 guys are just a defensive nightmare because if you want to defend Derrick Henry, you want to have your base defense on the field. You want to defend Lamar Jackson, you want to have your nickel defense on the field. Well, the Ravens put both of them on the field at the same time. So no matter what you do as a defensive coordinator, not only are they going to stress you from a schematic standpoint, they're going to stress you from a personnel you choose to have on the field standpoint. And no matter what you choose, they got the ability to make you wrong.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned those 2 players and how hard they are to defend and how it's a completely different scheme either way. They're both in they're 2 of the top 4 in the league in rushing yards before first contact. Like that's half of the top 4 right there on one team. Like that's just filthy. They have so much talent on that team. And they have had a couple sketchy games. It seemed like they were still working out chemistry. Marlon Humphrey was asked about like, hey, what's key to this matchup here? And he said it's going to come down to Baltimore's secondary versus Cincinnati's wide receivers. Because if you look at their game comparisons since Joe Burrow has been the quarterback, in every game where the Ravens have won, they've held the receivers to under 120 yards on offense. In the 3 losses to Burrow, they've allowed them almost 300 yards. to the receivers. So it's the secondary matchup is very key in this game. And I like that the players are, saying that they're aware of that. So, Cincinnati's not over there like, oh, well, we just got to get past the secondary. He's like, oh no, we know. Like, trust us. We know the difference when our secondary doesn't show up. So I'm gonna roll with the Ravens here just because I feel like Cincinnati hasn't quite fully figured it out this season.
Yeah.
But I do think there is hope for them. And I mean, we've talked about some of these starting quarterbacks playing through injuries and not being at 100% and losing games, even if they're close games. I mean, Joe Burrow, who else have we been talking about? Trevor Lawrence. There are just some quarterbacks that are in because they don't have a better option, but they probably could use some extra time to recover before playing.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I could see Cincinnati stealing this one, but like you got to see it to believe it, kind of. And the Ravens are just so tough. And Jamar Chase said it this week. He's like, that's like cheating, having Derrick Henry and Lamar in the same backfield. Chad, what do you think of Kyle Van Noy turning back the clock with 6 sacks in the last 3 games too?
Kyle Van Noy's had a really interesting career. Always playing the linebacker spot, but now a little bit more primarily of a defensive end for the Ravens. He had some success with the Patriots. Left there, kind of disappeared for a while. Now he's back at it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a guy with a very versatile skill set. And I think from a coaching standpoint, I mean, there's a reason why Bill Belichick loved him and employed him in various ways. And now he's being used in various ways for the Ravens. I just love to see it. When
Yeah.
an older player finds, even a temporary fountain of youth, I know how awesome that is and how desperate you are to ride that wave as long as it's going for you.
All right, let's go. So from one great game to a game not so great. The Dolphins at the Patriots. Jacoby Brissett versus Tyler Huntley is the quarterback matchup. Tyreek Hill has been struggling, just 118 yards and 0 touchdowns the last 3 games combined. He was visibly upset on the sideline against the Titans the last game. The Dolphins with Jalen Phillips out for the season. No Jordan Poyer in this game. Amanda, this game is a mess. Not too many times this year are we going to be picking the Patriots, but I think this is one of those times in New England.
Yeah, and it's funny too, because you look at their last matchups, like the Patriots lost to the 49ers 30-13. The Dolphins lost to the Titans 12-31. So it's basically the same game. But if you're asking me who I think is the better opponent in that situation, obviously the 49ers are miles ahead. But the fact that the Dolphins have so much confidence in Tyler Huntley makes me really concerned for them. Like, yeah, he's really acclimating in this offense. McDaniel said that contextually there are a lot of positives to take away. He put up 13 points. Okay. Like I just disagree, but I like that they have faith in him. I just don't know what they see the plan being.
Yeah.
Like obviously there's something we don't because they're, working with them behind the scenes all the time. But it's interesting.
Well, it's remember last year, we spent all last season talking about why didn't the Jets bring in a better backup behind Aaron Rodgers? The Dolphins did the same thing. Look at all the backups, better backups out there. There was Desmond Ridder, Sam Howell, Mac Jones. The list is on and on, Joe Flacco. And they didn't bring anyone in. And now they're kind of screwed. Chad, it looks like the Dolphins season is kind of falling apart. I mean, I know the Tua, concussion and going on IR wasn't expected, but they didn't really have a backup plan at all.
No, and so because they don't have a backup plan, to your point, their season is looking like it's going to be a dumpster fire. And
Yeah.
again, I talked about the diva-esque nature of wide receivers. You think Tyreek Hill is going to want to waste a year of his career with these quarterbacks that are rolling out there? I know the Packers found some success with Malik Willis stepping in, and he outperformed for the Packers what he did with the Tennessee Titans. But I don't see Tyler Huntley being that same kind of guy, having that same kind of success. So I guess to answer the question about the game, I got the Patriots in this one. I think there's no doubt about that. But the Dolphins are facing what are they going to do in this offseason? You clearly got a quarterback who does not know how to protect himself. I mean, there's a skill to that. I played 15 years in the league. I played with other guys Rod Woodson got 17 in, and play with guys like John Randall, 13 or 14 years. There's a skill to learning how to be safe on a football field. And despite
Mhm.
taking judo and all the things that Tua has done, he still doesn't know how to do that. And so if you're the Dolphins, I know you've got this contract, and I'm not sure how it's going to be, how easy it is going to be to get out of that. But chances are you're going to be picking early in the draft. And there's a quarterback up in Boulder, my alma mater, who I'm sure would love to be a Miami Dolphin and love
Yeah.
to operate in that offense that they run down in Miami and would love to have a guy like Tyreek Hill as his receiver. So the Dolphins are going to face an interesting offseason. But again, for this game, I think it's pretty clear who I feel is going to be the better team, who's got better quarterback play, and who should win this one.
Have
Damn, I just got that visual of Shador Sanders with all those weapons in Miami. That would be fun to watch.
The Patriots coach is saying he's strongly considering having Antonio Gibson start over Ramondre Stevenson at running back because he's fumbled in each of the first 4 games.
Yeah, can't be doing that.
Yeah, but it's funny to me that they haven't made that call yet. They're like, oh, just one more shot. Like game 5, it's fine. You fumble in this one, then you're done. Like, how many chances are you going to give the kid?
Well, he was so good last year and in past years, but if I don't care who you are, if you're fumbling all the time, you're gonna get benched. So
yeah, but I agree with you saying this is a bad game. I mean, 2 lowest scoring teams in the NFL this year, like riveting.
yeah, it's
Stuff,
gonna be
man.
sloppy. Yeah. All right, Cleveland Browns at the Washington Commanders. Chad, Jaden Daniels has been absolutely on fire. Just 19 incompletions through 4 games. Incredible what he's doing over there. The Commanders are 3-1, and you could make a case right now that the Commanders are the best team in the NFC East. Are you buying that? Are you buying what the Commanders are doing to start the season?
Well, obviously the Cowboys, they've got their controversy swirling around them. The Eagles and their head coach, and were they buying what he's selling? That's
Yeah.
also a questionable thing. So yeah, I could say maybe not. I'm projecting that for the entire season, but right now the Commanders are playing the best football in that division.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as this game goes, Cleveland, yeah, the whole Deshaun Watson thing, it will go down probably as the worst contract ever in NFL history, particularly
Crazy.
not just because of the allegations and all that stuff and the suspensions, but just on the field.
Yeah.
There was a while Deshaun Watson was considered a top 5 quarterback when he was with the Houston Texans. He is
Mm-hmm.
so far removed from that level of play right now. It's got to be incredibly disappointing for Cleveland Brown fans and ownership there. But I don't see a path to the Browns, who are banged up on both sides of the ball, getting this done against an offense that's really clicking on, I won't say on all cylinders, but about as well as you possibly could expect for a team with a rookie quarterback to do.
Yeah, and my only thing is like Jim Schwartz and that Browns defense, what they were last year. We know that the Browns defense has potential to make life living hell for a quarterback, especially a rookie. So maybe the Browns defense steps up in this game. I think I'm riding with the Commanders, but it's something to keep an eye on. What do you think on that, Amanda?
I mean, we have yet to see them come back to where they were last year, and they have
Yeah.
the same weapons. So I'm very concerned about what's happening there. I just feel like the mentality of the team is just very distracted this year. But like so far that defense, they're dead last in allowing yards after contact to rushers. And the
Wow.
Commanders are 3rd in the league in rushing yards per game. So I can just see this Cleveland defense getting run all over in this matchup. And I feel like the momentum is with the Commanders. They've had their offense going for a couple weeks now, but their defense played its best game. They seem to be improving, and I haven't seen enough out of Cleveland. Like they're like that meme with the stick. Like do something. Like wake up. Like there's talent on that team. We just aren't seeing any of it happen in games.
Speaking of the Colts, the 2-2 Colts at the 0-4 Jags, it's now or never for Jacksonville. And the head coach with the hottest seat in the entire league, in my opinion, is Doug Peterson. 0-4. They're not supposed to be winless at this point, but they're going up against an injured Anthony Richardson. He's questionable. He's practiced all week, so I think he's probably going to start. the fans are wanting Flacco, from what I've seen, and he really performed well last week when he came in for Richardson. Amanda, how do you see this game going? I am going with the Jags here. I feel like, they're desperate. And if they don't win this week, when are they going to finally win,
Yeah, I mean, I just you've been saying that for a couple weeks. Like the
I
Jags are
have
an
been.
0-4 team.
Yeah.
And I know on paper they've got a lot more talent than this, but the quarterback situation is kind of its own thing. But that defense concerns me. They're the only team in the NFL that hasn't forced a turnover on defense. Like I
Yeah.
said this last week, coming into last week. Like it's I mean, they recovered a muff punt, but that's not really the same thing as forcing one. But defense just seems like they're half asleep. Like it seems like they just don't really care because their quarterback situation is kind of a mess. So they're just like, oh, we're not going to win anyway. And I want to see more life out of them. And well, the Colts haven't won a road game in Jacksonville since in the last 10 years. Um, I just think, I don't, this is a weird one. I have Jags written down with a question mark because I wanted some picks different than you, and we're pretty much in agreement so far. But
Yeah, pick the Colts. You want to.
no, I just can't. They're a mess and injuries, and I think I got to roll with the Jags. But I just don't know why they aren't winning games. Like
Yeah.
they've been close, but I they don't seem to care this year. Like they had fire last year, but they seem kind of apathetic, and I'm not understanding what's going on in that locker room that we're not hearing about. That is just like no one's frustrated. Like they lose a game and they're just like, like
Yeah, that's disconcerting when your quarterback, isn't taking it super serious. And Chad, what do you think? The Jags did look better last week. Almost beat the Texans. The Colts are pretty injury hit coming into this game. Do you think Jacksonville can get their first win?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Mm.
When your coach is saying it's an odd question, when people are asking him about his job status, come on, man. You've been in the NFL long enough. That was a terrible answer. You should have been
Yeah.
prepared for that. You should have something way better to say than that. And then you double it down and saying, we're calling good plays. The players need to execute. You're
Exactly.
putting at your players, also things that good coaches don't do. So that locker room is in disarray because there's not a connection between the players and the coaches. The coaches are pointing the fingers at the players, trying
Yeah.
to, I guess, cast the blame on the guys on the field versus their play calls. So I'm not sure if that organization is in a place to go out and win a football game. I don't think the Colts are exactly firing all cylinders right now.
yeah.
They're certainly further ahead than Jacksonville is. And, I know you guys are talking about desperate. Desperate only goes so far.
Mhm.
Desperate can win the first 10 plays, but after that, you got to execute. And the Jags have yet to execute on either side of the ball this season.
Yeah, very true. Amanda, I thought the Jags fired Urban Meyer a couple of years ago. Is he still there? What's going on over there?
I don't know. I mean, Brian Thomas Jr. is a nice little like flash of hope there. I mean, he had a great performance last week, career high 9 targets, did great for fantasy league. I was telling one of my friends to start him last week, so I was proud of that advice, but I don't know. I
Well,
think I'll side with Chad here. I'll roll with the Colts just so we have a couple different picks because so far we only have two. But
yeah.
I think this game is going to be a shit show. Like the Jags, I agree that they need to win. Like starting a season 0-5 is the end of the season. Like that's that. They're not coming back from that. But I don't see them being cohesive on either side of the ball. Like Chad mentioned, it's just not there.
Well, to me, the deciding factor, the injuries are definitely the Colts. No Jonathan Taylor, no Kenny Moore, no Quiddy Pay. Anthony Richardson is questionable, and the Jags might be getting Evan Ingram back. He's a game time decision. We know Evan Ingram is a safety blanket for Trevor Lawrence. Maybe that helps him get going a little bit. So let's go Jags.
All
See if
right.
I can get one here. All right, Chad, Bills at Texans. This is a great matchup. Josh Allen against C.J. Stroud, Stephon Diggs against his old team. This no Joe Mixon, but the Bills are no Khalil Shakir, no Ed Oliver, no Von Miller, no Taylor Rapp. To me, it's advantage Texans at home. Chad, how do you see this one going?
This, for me, is probably the toughest game of the week to pick.
Yeah.
The Stephon Diggs Bowl.
Yep.
Stephon Diggs will try to do too much. The receivers for the Bills try to show Stephon Diggs said, "We don't miss you. We don't need you." There's all that aspect going on. You point out the injuries. Lots of key players missing in this game. Um, I like Coach McDermott. I like
Hmm.
Coach Ryans. So there's a lot of things to like. I like both quarterbacks. Um, I guess I'll tilt towards the Texans because of home field here. Uh,
Hmm.
and maybe that's the difference. And a motivated Stephon Diggs is able to take advantage of a banged up Bills defense. It's kind of where I'm leaning just because I see this one as being so close. Maybe a 3-point game, which is typically what you get when you have the home field advantage for the Texans.
Yeah, Amanda, I know no Khalil Shakir. That's tough to deal with right there. That's a big loss.
Yeah, I think the Bills are kind of beat up. I mean, up until last weekend, I would have picked the Bills straight out
Hmm.
by 15 at least. But they got beat down a little bit in Baltimore. And I think the injuries are kind of catching up with them here. And Diggs has yet to put up a 100-yard game, and this would be the perfect one to do it in. Um,
Yep.
I mean, he's had 500-yard games in the past first 6 games of last season. But since then he's gone 17 games without hitting 100 yards. So he's overdue. But it would be a great game to have his first one in a Texans uniform against his old team. So I can see the energy being with them, and they're not fighting a ton of injuries like Buffalo is here.
Yeah. So you're going Texans. You're going against your AFC team. What are you doing?
I love them, but they're injured. What do you want from me? I picked the Vikings against the Packers the second I realized Jair Alexander was out. Like, just because I love the team doesn't mean I think they're going to pull off a win.
All right, let's go. Raiders Broncos in Denver. Broncos on a 2-game winning streak beat the Jets in week 4. The Raiders, Max Crosby playing through an ankle or plans to play through an ankle injury. Devontae Adams not going to play, requesting a trade. Some drama there. Broncos defense has been on fire. Corner Pat Surtain might be the best in the NFL. I got the Broncos at home here against the Raiders. Amanda, is that what you're seeing? Denver at home?
Yeah, the Raiders are just a hot mess. They've got some new young receivers they're trying out, Trey Tucker, DJ Turner. They're trying to, turn them into the next Devontae Adams. And I mean, the Raiders have won the last 8 straight games against Denver, but the mentality with the coach calling out players and players making business decisions, and Devontae
Yeah,
Adams, having potentially played his last game in a Raiders uniform, and the coach liking a tweet about that, like,
can't do that.
no, just the behind the scenes stuff. I would be shocked if they were able to pull together a win here. Max Crosby being healthy is a vital part of that team
Yeah,
winning as well. Um, and Bo Nix looks surprisingly good for Denver, which are words I did not think would come out of my mouth this season.
yeah,
So
this
I'm still
early
kind of
too.
I'm dumbfounded by that. And that Broncos defense has been good. So yeah,
Hmm.
I'll go with Denver here. But yeah, I expect this just be a weird game, honestly. Like, 2 safeties or something weird, like a one of those butt fumble games. Like, I just expect something odd from this matchup. I don't know why.
Chad, are the Broncos going to be on a 3-game winning streak?
It's only possible. The lowest over under of the week of 35 points. No one's expecting these offenses to light it up out there. But to Amanda's point, this Broncos defense is playing well, second in the league in sacks,
Mhm.
top 5 in most defensive categories. Vance Joseph, my CU teammates, got them playing at a really high level, despite only having one All-Pro out there, and that's Pat Surtain.
Hmm.
Sean Payton, I think, is a good enough coach offensively to get enough offense to get a close win. I don't see I don't see this going over the 35 over under. I'm looking at like a 20-14 win,
Mhm.
something like that for the Broncos at
An
home.
Another
Off
10-9 win for them.
not quite that bad. Not quite that bad. I think there'll be some offensive movement there for the Broncos, better than what they got against the Jets. But this Raiders team is, yeah, they're in a bad spot. Locker rooms being fractured. As much as I love AP as a coach and some of his, football views, you don't like tweets about players being changed,
No.
traded.
Yeah,
That's just dumb. It's
yeah,
gonna you in the locker room. So the Raiders got to get their shit together before they can win a game against a team not even as great. That's not even great. The Broncos aren't great, but they're better than where the Raiders are right now.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The Max Crosby factor. I mean, he's had 13 and a half sacks in his 10 games against the Broncos. Like, he has their number. So him playing with an injury, like, I feel like advantage Broncos there. So
Yeah.
they're probably gonna enjoy the break from him, honestly.
Yeah, and the Broncos are just playing better football right now. So, Cardinals at 49ers. The Cardinals, a lot of people were excited to watch this Cardinal team this year, but at 1-3, they've been underachieving and not as competitive as people would have thought. Their pass defense is struggling. The 49ers, they're starting to get a little bit healthier, getting George Kittle and Deebo Samuel back. Give me the 49ers at home here. Is it in San Francisco? Yeah, give me the 49ers here. Chad, you agree?
This is going to be my one crazy pick of the week. I got
I
the
like
Okay.
it.
in this one. The Niners are a weird team. I love
Yeah.
Kyle Shanahan as a play caller. I love what they do defensively. I love their star power, but for some reason, sometimes they just underperform. And I think this is going to be one of those weeks. Kyler Murray is an issue from a pass rush perspective.
Yeah.
And the Niners defense is really predicated on that wide nine style defensive end, getting penetration into the backfield, getting upfield, guys like Bosa and guys like that. There's something about Kyler Murray, and he makes life difficult for pass rushers. So I would not bet a lot of money on this one, but I'm going to go with the Cardinals here.
Okay, Amanda, what do you think?
So I could argue for either team here. The Cardinals are coming off a bad loss last week, 28-point home loss. So they're going to be feisty and ready to win. The Niners had a great win last week, 17-point victory. So they might be a little bit relaxed coming into this one. But they also had their season high, 431 yards, 3 forced turnovers. So I can see them kind of continuing being better on both sides of the ball here than we saw earlier in the season. And I mean, the 49ers have had the Cardinals number. I mean, 4 straight wins against them. And I just, as much fun as I would like the Cardinals to be, and as much as I'd like to pick them, I picked them this past week against Washington. So I'm kind of mad at them right now because that was my feisty pick last week. I was like, ooh, Arizona to win. No, that was fucking
Yeah.
embarrassing.
I think I
So
picked them too, and it was just,
it was
yeah,
bad. Oh
42
my
points.
God.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was embarrassing. But I think San Francisco is showing that they're kind of back to where they were Super Bowl appearance wise with, Kittle and Deebo back. I feel like they're getting back to their potential. So I'm gonna roll with
Yeah.
this here.
Yeah,
But
and
I
it's a
like
big
Chad's
difference.
pick. Chad's pick's ball.
Yeah, it's a good pick, but there's a big difference between 3-2 and 2-3. And the Niners, I think they're going to have that sense of urgency, and hopefully they show up and get it done. 2-2 Packers, Amanda's Packers at the 1-3 Rams. Jordan Love looking to bounce back. Should protect the football, have a good game, but Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs are doubtful. Green Bay wide receivers. Jair Alexander back at practice, so maybe he plays in this game. The Rams are very injury hit. No Puka Nakua, no Cooper Kupp, along with many other guys that are out. Give me the Packers in LA. Amanda, I know you're going Green Bay.
Jordan Love, I have a theory. I mean, 28-0 in the first 25 minutes of the game, and then outscored them 29-3 in the second half of the game. I think somebody got a cortisone shot at halftime and then came back in and started putting pressure on that back leg. The second half of the Packers game should be studied. That was beautiful on both sides of the ball. But I do think him having a little more time to recover. If you asked which receivers I'd prefer to miss this game, I would have Dontavian Wicks, who can't catch for shit last week. He had what, 3 drops? I would switch him with Dobbs or Watson. But we do have enough young receivers. I think they can fill that gap. But that Rams offense too. I mean, Cooper Kupp and Puka Nakua out. Green Bay's defense
Yeah,
has been too solid.
yeah, he's throwing to like Tutu Atwell and guys like that. So, what do you think, Chad?
I'm going to go with an upset special here. I'm going to go with the Rams.
Oh,
Sean
there
May
you
teaches LaFleur a lesson. Let's not forget, LaFleur was on that staff
go.
in
Oh
LA with
no!
McVay.
Oh, Chad and I are going to be in a fight.
Yeah. Because I just believe in Sean McVay, and I think the Rams
Yeah.
are better than their record. Obviously, they got injuries, but I think they somehow find a way to get it done. And we
Okay.
shall see. And if
Yeah.
I end up
I'm
buying,
gonna take this off the wall, man. You're hurting my feelings.
Giants at Seahawks. Seahawks coming off their first loss of the season in Detroit, but Kenneth Walker went crazy with 3 touchdowns. The New York pass rush, the Giants pass rush, I thought was going to be scary and intimidating. They haven't really been producing the way I thought. Malik Neighbors is out, still in concussion protocol. All signs are pointing to Seattle at home. Chad, you agree?
the Giants coming off a little bit of a mini bye, and Seahawks have a bit of a short week. Seahawks still find a way to get it done. So it's going to be closer than it would have been if they would have been Sunday to Sunday. But the Seahawks
Okay.
are a better team. Their defense is playing really well. Their run game is powering that offense. The Seahawks will get it done.
All right.
I think I'm with Chad on this one.
Yeah.
Seattle's defense has been great. Fourth most sacks in the NFL. And I do think Malik Neighbors has been a bit of a little dose of life in that offense for the Giants.
Yeah, losing him
I
is
think they're going
big.
to be missing him quite a bit.
Yeah. Yep. Let's go Sunday Night Football. I'm very excited for this game. I can't wait. And one of the biggest reasons is Justin Fields on prime time, and he's got the Steelers out to a 3-1 start. And if he plays well in this game, that'll shut up a lot of the haters. He's no longer a Bear, but I'm still a Justin Fields fan for sure. And both teams have some injuries. The Cowboys with no Brandon Cooks, no Micah Parsons, no DeMarcus Lawrence. The Steelers are without Alex Highsmith, Jalen Warren, and Cordero Patterson. How do we see this game going? I'm going Steelers at home. Amanda, do you think the Steelers will get this one?
If the Steelers defense plays like it did last week,
Mm-hmm.
then no. They gave up 27 points to the Colts, let them convert 53% of their third downs. Like, that was a bad performance by them. But I do expect them not to do that. So I'm
That's
picking the
just because
Steelers here.
Flacco was back, though.
Yeah, I'm picking the Steelers, but I just you better show up more than you did last week.
I think it's going to be a good game.
I want the Cowboys to wake up.
Yeah.
Like, they haven't had a rushing game so far this season.
Well, they don't have running backs. They got old Zeke and
I
Rico
know, but
Dowdle.
they got to pull somebody off the practice squad or something.
Activate Dalvin Cook. What's he doing over there?
I don't know, but they're, I mean, literally fourth worst in their entire team history for rushing. Like,
Wow.
I just, I think they're not addressing issues and making adjustments, and it's frustrating me. Like, I don't want them to win any games when you have issues in a game and then you just roll into the next game with the same issues. Don't pull anyone up from the practice squad. Don't make any changes or adjustments. Like, that's just stubborn, and it's going to keep losing you games.
Chad, as a former Steeler linebacker, I know you're going black and yellow in this one.
Normally I would say, you listed some of the injuries for the Steelers, but the Steelers they're banged up on their offensive line and have been all year. So if
Yeah.
Michael Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence were active, then they'd be able to take advantage of that. But I'm not sure if the
Yep.
Cowboys are going to be able to do that. So a full strength Cowboys team, I think, could give the Steelers some troubles, but they're not full strength. And
Yep.
where the Steelers are weak, it's kind of where the Cowboys are weak too. So
Mm-hmm.
the TJ Watt effect, which we've seen over the last 2 years, where sometimes he single-handedly goes out and wins football games. We
Yeah.
see Justin Fields this year, play at a level where I think most folks outside of Chicago Bear fans didn't think he was capable. I think at this point he has secured the
Mm-hmm.
starting job for Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll see if they're willing to make him a franchise quarterback and give him what seems to be the going rate for quarterbacks, a $250 million contract. That'll be interesting to see how all that plays out. But for right now, he's the Steelers starter. I think he's playing good enough for this offense to score enough points, considering the defense is probably going to keep a low-scoring game, where the Steelers get the win.
Yeah. Monday Night Football, the Saints at the Chiefs. Chad, I am so sick of this Chiefs team. They shouldn't be 4-0. The refs bail them out at every opportunity. They're, taking out their own receivers. Rashee Rice is out now. The defense though is carrying that team. The defense has been playing great. I think this is going to be a great game though. I think the Saints bounce back, and I think this is a very competitive game. Do you think this is going to be a good game, or do you think Chiefs at home? The Saints have kind of come back down to earth the last 2 weeks.
Clint Kubiak had that Saints offense operating at a high level. They came with base personnel, which was forcing defenses to go with base personnel those first couple of weeks. But you knew at some point somebody was going to solve that formula, and it
Yeah.
looks like it's been solved now. The Chiefs, what they've done is they've been able to win close games, and so
Mm-hmm.
whether it's calls, as you pointed out, or lucky tips, or fumbles, or overthrows, whatever the case may be, they've found a way to win close games. And there's an art to that. There's a skill to that in the NFL, having belief in those moments. And going back to last year, the Saints have proven they don't have the ability to win close games. They find ways to
Yeah.
lose close games. There were
Yeah.
times last year where they just needed to hold the lead in the fourth quarter and they couldn't. So if it's a close game, I don't have a whole lot of faith in the Saints. I've got faith in the Chiefs in those situations. So considering I think it's going to be another close game, the Chiefs are still not at full speed, clearly. Their offense is not operating at their historic levels, but they will be good enough to get the win on Monday night.
Amanda, you agree? You got the Chiefs at home?
I mean, took the words out of my mouth. As much as I want to say that the Saints will win, I mean, they barely lost to the Falcons, and in that one they surrendered a muffed punt and let a pick six past. I want to say that, the Chiefs aren't as good as their record indicates. Patrick Mahomes is having an off year. His QBR so far this season is 53. He's dead middle, 17th in the league right now. Actually, that's below the middle, but the Chiefs are annoying, and the fact that they find a way to barely squeak by and win a game. And the Saints seem to be hurting without Taysom Hill in the lineup. Their running game is down quite a bit in the 7 quarters of play he's missed, and he's not practicing so far this week. Rib and chest injuries. And they seem to rely on him a lot more than what his numbers indicate. Like if you look at the games and the quarters where he's in, their yards per carry is 6.1, and the ones he's out, it's barely 2. So I expect the Chiefs to win this one. I do hope it's a close game. I think the Saints have a lot of talent and they should put up a fight, but it's really hard to choose against the Chiefs, knowing how good they are and how good they are at winning, regardless of if all of the calls made in their direction seem legitimate. It's just, it's hard to pick against that team, despite what we may want.
How many games have we disagreed on this week? Like 3? 3 total?
2?
2, not counting Thursday night, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
So we've got Vikings, Jets, and Colts, Jags.
All right. So in order for me to tie you, I'm gonna take the Saints in Kansas City so that I can tie Amanda in the picks and then take the lead next week.
Well, now
and
the
Derek
Chiefs are going to win by 30, so.
No, the Saints are going to win by 30. And Derek Carr, we trust. Alvin Kamara for 3 touchdowns. And yeah.
Just because you picked them, you think they're gonna pull it off.
The Chiefs are this year's Lions. I'm picking against the Chiefs like every week this year.
Him and his hate picks, man.
Next week, I've got the Red River Showdown, Texas, Oklahoma, in Dallas.
Nice. Who you got this week?
I've got Missouri at Texas A&M. So, yeah,
Okay.
I got because it's an early kick. It's an 11 a.m. kick, and we got to get to the stadium pretty early. So I got to run and get myself in bed. But good to see you guys. We'll try to
you too. Ed, and good luck tomorrow. Have fun.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for coming on. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment, and peace out.